Good afternoon, everyone. Joining me today is Lieutenant General Frank McKenzie, Director of the Joint Staff. As many of you have already reported, last night 3 U.S. service members and 1 partner nation member were killed. 2 U.S. service members were injured while conducting an advise and assist mission in Niger's security forces in southwest Niger.
Looking for sort of an update on the last time we saw you. At that time, you suggested that the Secretary was adamant about his belief that there should be more transparency, and you said that some general, broad troop numbers for Iraq and Syria would be forthcoming. I'm wondering if you can update us on the progress of that. The Secretary also this week said or acknowledged that because of the broad hurricane effort, that some of the deployments to Afghanistan have been delayed. General McKenzie, I'm wondering if you can give us a little bit more granularity on that. At the time you did your last briefing, we were told there were about 11,000 troops in Afghanistan. This week, the Secretary and the Chairman said there are still about 11,000 troops in Afghanistan, suggesting that very little of this close to 3,500, 4,000 uptick has come in. Can you tell us sort of what the impact has been? How has it affected the actual work on the ground? Because both General Nicholson and the Chairman have both talked about this need for additional support on the ground.
Well, I'll take your first question. We are still working on the Iraq and Syria numbers. That is a commitment of the Secretary's to be more transparent. And as soon as we have those accounting practices and the principles are the same as for Afghanistan, we will announce those numbers. General?
Sure. Last time I was in here, I mentioned the number approximately 11,000. That's still the number that we're working off. Forces are flowing to Afghanistan. They have been slightly delayed by ongoing hurricane relief efforts. I'm not going to go further into characterizing the nature of those delays. Forces continue to flow, but there has been a slight delay. It will take a little bit of time to build a force up in Afghanistan. At some point in the future, we'll come back in and we'll give you a new approximate number, but right now it's in the vicinity of 11,000. Probably a little bit over that number, but I'm not prepared to give you a number above that right now.
And is it accurate that some of these may be delayed until next year because of the hurricane efforts? I mean, what is is it a transport problem? Can you at least give us a sense of what the issues are? Actually,
one of the key points that I noted when I talked the last time in here was we wanted to get away from talking about the flow of forces into Afghanistan, because it does in fact give aid and comfort to the enemy. They're able to calculate what forces are coming in. So I'm not going to be able to give you additional information on that.
But you can't, I'm not looking for timelines or specific locations. I'm asking what the problem is. Can you give us a better idea of what the problem is?
Sure,
and whether
certainly,
it's impacting?
Certainly. So let me characterize it like this. There's a finite number of transport aircraft that U.S. Transportation Command has. We're moving things to Puerto Rico. We're doing a variety of things to help down there. The department has been very aggressive in supporting FEMA and the other agencies of the United States government, given the fact that we have a finite number of transport aircraft that will inevitably slow movement to other theaters, and the slight delay in the flow of forces to Afghanistan is sort of a natural component of that, and that's about as much detail as I'm prepared to give.
Hans.
General McKenzie, a couple just on the situation in Niger. Could you kind of describe beyond the advise and assist and the training mission going on there? Are these forces, U.S. forces, looking to engage Islamic militants?
No, we're there on a security assistance advise mission. This was, and I don't have any further particular operational detail on this, but it's a pretty broad mission with the government of Niger in order to increase their capability to stand alone and to prosecute violent extremists in the region.
When they were ambushed, did the opposing force know that these were American forces?
I don't know that they were ambushed. I don't know that we are prepared to characterize this. There was engagement. I think we're still gathering information on that.
But just one quick follow-up. Did they know that they were Americans?
We were not prepared to tell any more details. Ryan?
Just to follow one up quickly on Niger, what kind of risks do the some 800 U.S. forces in Niger right now? I mean, I know it's an advise and assist mission, but what kind of risk, what kind of environment? Is this considered a combat environment?
I think clearly there's risk for our forces in Niger. Anytime we deploy full forces globally, we look very hard at the enablers that need to be in place in order to provide security for them. That ranges from the ability to pull them out if they're injured to the ability to reinforce them at the point of at the point of a fight if they need reinforcement. We look at all those things and evaluate on a continual basis. I'm not going to go into any further detail on what's actually happening inside Niger because we have ongoing partnered operations occurring now.
Lucas.
Who carried out the attack in Niger?
And we don't have any details on that. Remember, our mission there was a security assistance. We've been there a long time in helping African nations build partner capacity.
You must have some suspects.
They're ongoing operations, and we're no more details right now.
General, was there a surveillance drone flying overhead when the U.S. forces were attacked?
I'm going to have to just tell you, ongoing operations, we're not prepared to go into any details on them right now.
Would it have made a difference if it was?
We're not going to talk about any more details.
Were there any enemy forces killed during the attack in Niger?
Again, there are ongoing operations, and we're not prepared to talk any more details.
There are reports coming out of Iraq saying that the U.S. is establishing a base in Mahmoud and deploying forces down there as well as some other elements. Can you confirm that the U.S. is establishing or forming any base or enlarging any bases in Mahmoud? And what is the reason for deploying forces and these efforts down in Mahmoud?
Yeah, that's a.
You go ahead. Yes.
That's an operational issue. I'm not just not going to refer to it at all. I'm not denying it or confirming it. It's an operational issue, so I'm not going to be able to discuss it.
Do you know if U.S. troops were mounted or dismounted when they were attacked? And are U.S. troops in Niger operating out of up-armored vehicles or light-skinned tactical vehicles?
Not going to share the nature of what the patrol was doing, what the operation was doing at the time that it came under fire. I don't think that would be useful to share that information. I'll have to get back to you on the nature of the vehicles.
Can you, in layman's language, talk a little bit about the rules of engagement being relaxed, might be the wrong word, but being revised? The Secretary tried in his 6 hours of testimony, but it was somewhat elliptical and cryptic. Can you talk at the ground level? What will U.S. troops and Afghan troops be able to do under the new construct they couldn't do this week or last week?
Sure. Well, first of all, we believe that today the ROE that our forces apply in Afghanistan give them all the authorities they need to execute the tasks that they've been given. That includes the ability to call fire when necessary, in support of Afghan forces. We're not directly engaged in ground combat, as you know. We're in a train, advise, assist, accompany mission. So we don't anticipate the requirement for U.S. forces to engage directly. They'll always have the option to engage with self-defense should that be required. Additionally, we have the commander has the authority to target any group or entity that is taking action against the government of Afghanistan or coalition or U.S. forces in the area. Those are actually pretty clear sets of ROE, and we believe they actually give the commander and forces there all they need to continue to prosecute the campaign.
Again, I think when the Secretary says that this could delay some deployments, again, we have lots of options, and the priority, as he says, it's all hands on deck. We will do whatever is necessary to help our fellow citizens in Puerto Rico. But he is still going. But the orders are being signed. There are still forces flowing in, as the general has said, and there will be minimal delay to the strategy. It is not the first time we've had natural disasters and deployed forces. Again, if it's a minor delay, but there are still forces flowing in.
Iraq, Afghanistan, there's an infrastructure in place where American troops can be medevaced from the battlefield within 45 minutes. Is there a similar capability for U.S. troops in Niger?
That's an operational issue that I'm not going to discuss.
I don't think that's an operational issue. This is not an ongoing operation. This is a question if U.S. troops who are being sent into harm's way have the ability to be sent to a proper medical facility.
I appreciate your position, but partnered operations are ongoing even today, so I'm not going to be able to go any more detail on that.
We've been waiting for ultimate numbers on Iraq and Afghanistan troops for a while. We can't get answers to things like whether or not there's proper medevac facilities for troops deployed downrange. This is for both special forces and conventional forces. Even last night when troops were killed in combat, it took a while to just get confirmation that troops were killed. How is the Pentagon being more transparent these days besides talking about transparency?
So I think it's very important to understand that last night we did lose 3 service members, and it was a very dynamic situation, and we still have ongoing operations. The reason it takes a little while, and I think AFRICOM did a fantastic job under circumstances, is that we don't have the benefit of corrections. We have to get it right when there are service members' lives at stake. So we will be as transparent as we can be. But again, the Secretary's been very clear, we are not going to telegraph information to the enemy. And as the General has said, as we have said, there are ongoing operations. We will give you information. It was the Secretary's initiative to give the full number, an approximate number, about the 11,000 in Afghanistan, and it is his commitment to continue to do that.
But what has been done to actually provide transparency? What's more transparent now?
We changed the accounting rules. So before in Afghanistan, it was reported that there were 84,000 U.S. troops, and now we've told you it's approximately 11,000. So that's a change. There's 11,000. We had reported in the past 8,400. You all had that number for years, 8,400. And now, with the new accounting rules, it's 11,000. That is a demonstration of our commitment to transparency.
Isn't that just less opaque than transparent?
Again, it is with the caveat that we are not going to telegraph to the enemy what we're doing.
Follow up on the attack in Niger. Has this changed at all the U.S. understanding of extremist groups' ability to target U.S. forces stationed abroad?
I would say, listen, we have ongoing operations. Our mission there was train and assist. We've worked in AFRICOM to build capacity among partners for years. We will continue to do that, and as we get more information, we will let you know.
So you're confident that you can protect U.S. forces stationed abroad still?
Yes, we're confident that we can. That we also take in consideration, what are the forces, what are they doing? So again, we will give you those numbers. Joint Staff is diligently working on that. But when we have those numbers, we will let you know.
I want to be very clear. I am not asking about ongoing operations. I would like to ask a Defense Department policy question about how Secretary Mattis and the Chairman view the following. Policy question, not current events. Are they committed around the world to the golden hour for wounded troops? It's pretty much, with all due respect, a yes or no question. Is this department committed to the golden hour for wounded troops?
We are committed to always protecting our troops. That is our first priority.
General McKenzie, can I ask you, you're very familiar with what that is and the battlefield. It's a question for military families. I think they might be very interested in the answer. Is the U.S. military committed to the golden hour to get U.S. troops to trauma care within an hour of being wounded?
The department puts vast resources against that problem. It is one of the primary considerations for each geographic combatant commander. It's a signal concern of the chairman and the secretary as well. Whenever possible, we seek to achieve that goal. There are occasional times when operational events, maintenance problems may cause you not to meet that goal, but it is our goal to be as rapid as possible in taking our casualties off the battlefield.
And does that include West Africa?
That includes all of our troops.
So that does include West Africa?
It does.
Question about last week's rocket attack in Kabul. There was a missile fired from a U.S. helicopter that malfunctioned, killed 4 people, and I think injured 2. Has the Defense Department paid condolence payments to those families?
I don't have any details about that. But I will come back to you regarding whether that has happened.
Russia has accused the United States of being the #1 encumbrance to the fight against ISIS in Syria. There was that episode a little while ago where Russian air forces bombed positions where U.S. troops were. I know there have been some high-profile meetings, but is there a concern that Russia is representing increasingly a threat to U.S. and U.S.-backed forces in Syria? And is there any additional steps being taken to kind of prevent Russia from taking offensive action against U.S. forces?
We continue to work with Russia to deconflict. It's a complicated area, and we are still working with Russia to deconflict in the area. General, if you'd like to expand.
Sure. I would just tell you there are a variety of deconfliction channels with Russia. We work them pretty aggressively. As you know, we're limited in the contacts, the scale and scope we can have with the Russian Federation, and we scrupulously adhere to the intent as well as the letter of the law when it comes to that. I would simply say that recent Russian comments about U.S. activities is probably not helpful. We believe that we and our partners and our coalition partners, as well as our partners on the ground, are in Syria to go after ISIS. We're having great success closing out on Raqqa, heading further south even now. And so I think it's a good news story. I do believe, though, that as the Syrian state forces, supported by Russia, have moved to the west, they have found it increasingly difficult actually to provide to hold force. They're unable to hold the ground they've taken, which sort of tells you of the relative affection for which the Syrian population bear for Assad and his government, whereas we're actually not experiencing those problems in areas that we've actually cleared and come further south. So I don't want to minimize the nature of the problem. I would simply tell you there are a variety of procedures that are in place to ensure that we don't get into a problem by miscalculation or error on the ground.
Just to follow up real quickly, would the U.S. prefer to see its backed forces take places like Mayadeen versus Syrian regime troops, given, as you said, the proven ability to hold areas more so than regime forces?
The priority is completing the elimination of ISIS in the Euphrates River Valley. I think we're neutral in who actually does that work as long as the work is accomplished and it's effective.
Can you give us your assessment of the strength of AQIM in the Niger-Mali region and perspective on what you've seen? Have they grown? Have they become more lethal? What have you seen over the last year? Does this represent a greater lethality on their part?
The campaign against violent extremists is a global campaign. We're having enormous success in Iraq and in Syria. In fact, we're squeezing the life out of the caliphate right now. It's in its dying last days. It is inevitable that people will try to go what we call the coldest corner of the room, go to other places. They tried to go to Libya. It didn't work out real well in Libya, and I don't want to make Libya into a model success story, but they've been unable to establish themselves there. They've also tried to flow into sub-Saharan Africa, the Maghreb area down there, and I think we're having success in there as well. I would not at this time draw any particular conclusion from the incident that happened yesterday. I think that it does reflect the fact, though, that we're having enormous success against the core, the very heart of this movement. But we're going to be operating across the surface of the entire globe for quite a while to complete these operations.
Seen more ISIS, or at least some ISIS, moving into the Maghreb, and that may be part of what's going on there?
No, I'm not. I would not assert that. I would not.
So you haven't seen it?
No. Well, I'm not prepared to comment on that one way or another. That would be an intelligence question better answered by someone that's not me.
Has the incident in Niger caused the Pentagon to reassess the defense posture there?
Again, this was a mission in which we were training and assisting. The department does partner capacity building across Africa, and it's to help partners combat the scourge that is terrorism and violent extremism. That was the mission. That is what we'll continue to do.
Understood, but there's 3 dead soldiers now. So are you reassessing the way that our forces are being protected there in light of these events?
So we continually reassess the force protection posture of our forces globally. And the commander AFRICOM, who's the first senior officer in the chain of command to do that, is undoubtedly doing that right now.
Would you say in the last few years the United States has increased its military presence in that country?
Yes, I would say that over the last few years we've increased our military presence in the country. Depends on how far back you look. I don't have the exact numbers, but yeah, because Niger is an important partner of ours. We have a deep relationship with them. We have a great opportunity there to do train, advise, assist, to do a variety of things with them to help them stand on their own 2 feet. So,
is the incident yesterday the first time U.S. troops have been involved in combat in Niger? And would you describe it as combat?
I wouldn't, again, what they were doing in Niger was a train, assist, and advise mission. Obviously, anything that our troops do, they are in harm's way. But again, that mission was a security assistance mission.
Have there been other firefights, though, that U.S. forces have been involved in Niger?
And not to my recollections.
I don't believe so. I would just add, I'm not going to parse the language with you. Certainly to the soldiers that were in the fight, it was combat. So I don't want to dance around that. I mean, it was certainly a remarkable experience for those people that were actually there. I'm not aware there's been any incidents of that nature in the recent past. We will look back into several years going back, but I'm just not aware that there's been anything there.
Respect for elders now. Come on.